Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing well. It's been a couple of weeks since you saw me because simply I've been a busy bee. The countdown to my holiday has been full on at work, and I am just finding myself just crashing out in the evening. I've just been absolutely exhausted trying to meet deadlines and all this lot. And I've also been I finished off watching all of Grey's Anatomy. I've watched Fire Country, the two series of Fire Country, after recommendation of from mine and my sister's bestie, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. I also watched Tenko, which I fell head over heels in love with. I finished that yesterday. So I've been doing lots of other things. But yeah, I'm now back, and I am so looking forward to Friday because that's when my 2-week holiday begins. So yeah, next couple of days I've just got work as normal. Wednesday, Thursday is still work, but I've got a work thing in Manchester. So when I come back on Thursday from Manchester, my holiday officially begins. Yay! And I'm off to Liverpool for a few days the following week, which I'm excited. I've never been to Liverpool. I have been, but only for a day visit or something when visiting family up north. So I've not had time to really look around, like how with Bristol, when I stayed for overnight just to spend a couple of days in Bristol. I've been to Bristol, I've been to specific areas of Bristol, but I've never just explored the place. And so I'm doing the same with Liverpool, and I'm going to spend a few days in Liverpool, and I'm really excited to see what I get up to, and museums and music and culture and all that lot. So yeah, I'm really excited to go, but I've just got to get through this coming week, and then I am done. So yeah, so I've been a busy bee, just working and just doing other things other than reading. But I have been reading, I promise you, because I am here to review the book I have been reading over the past couple of weeks, which is Skinner's Ordeal by Quintin Jardine. I looked up because I wasn't sure how to pronounce his surname, and everywhere, various interviews or audio books, pronounce his surname as Jardine, so that's what I'm pronounced like that. It is possible that they got that wrong. I don't know, but there we are. So Quintin is a Scottish author who has been publishing books since, I think, his earliest book that I've seen listed, just to clarify, this may be completely wrong because it may have been published earlier, was from about 1998. So so he's been publishing books since then. And when I picked this, I said I think this is something like book 27 of a 50 book series or something. I got that completely wrong. So Skinner's Ordeal, his character Bob Skinner, who is a detective chief constable. Just wanted to double check that I got that ranking correct on the back of the book. This is the 5th book of that series. That series at the moment has 35 books, and his entire bibliography is about 53, I think. So I think maybe when I said it, it's book 27 or something, it might have been something around the 20th book that he had published or something. I'm not sure, but just to clarify, out of the Bob Skinner series, there are 35 books, and this is book 5. So there we go. This was my first time that I had read anything by Quintin. I didn't know who he was, really. I kind of vaguely recognised the name, but I couldn't tell you anything about him. And when looking up his bibliography to get those numbers right, I recognise some of the book covers. So I don't necessarily recognise this one, but there are other ones where I'm like, oh, that's that guy. He's always in the crime section of Waterstones or whatever, usually on the tables, where they got them so you can see the covers rather than the spines of the books on bookshelves and such. So I do recognise some of his books, but I haven't read any of them. So that's my background interactions, as it were, with Quentin's work. So there wasn't much. So I went into this book pretty blind. I didn't know anything about his Bob Skinner character, anything about his world build, nothing. And to be honest, I think that was actually a good thing for this book. So this book is about, as mentioned, Bob Skinner, Detective Chief Constable Bob Skinner, who is located in Scotland, and he's going through some stuff. I don't want to say what, because obviously spoilers. And then a plane explodes in the sky. It's very, very early on in the book. There's a couple of chapters and then it happens, and it's the biggest case in his career so far. He goes to the site and discovers that this plane has clearly a bomb had been placed on the plane, and there is only one survivor, who is a child, and it's all about him figuring out exactly what happened. There were two very high-ranking individuals on that plane of British and American nationality respectively, and it's him trying to find out what is going on. But in the course of the investigation, something happens which leaves him severely injured in hospital, and so it goes over to his colleagues and such to try and put the pieces together and try and find out what the hell is going on. So yeah, that's the kind of general premise of the book. Clearly, straight away, I was like, okay, this is inspired by the Lockerbie bombing. At least my mind went there. In case you don't know what the Lockerbie bombing was, in 88, I can't remember if it's 88 or 89, I have a feeling it's 88, a flight that was flying over Lockerbie in Scotland, it exploded due to a bomb that had been placed on the plane. All 200, I think it was 200 or just over 200 passengers and crew sadly died, and 11 people from Lockerbie also died because debris falling on the area hit various houses and killed 11 people who were asleep, because it was an overnight flight. It was a horrific event that happened, and it's something that's kind of in the consciousness of people here in the UK, and obviously particularly in Scotland, of an event that happened. I mean, we don't necessarily learn about it, say, in school, but it's something that people are aware of. Kind of like the Aberfan disaster that happened in Wales. Now, of course, that's from my perspective of having gone to school in England, obviously quite some time ago, and I gather that this is something that is taught, so is in with Scotland, that it would be taught in Scottish schools, and Aberfan may be taught in Welsh schools, because those disasters happened in those particular areas. But certainly for me, going to school in England, when a bit of time ago, we weren't taught it in school, but it was something that I knew about because of just being in the consciousness of British people. So going back to my point, it felt very much that this was written with that as an inspiration. And as soon as it happens, you can almost see, or at least visualize, the color draining from Bob's face. It feels so powerful. I almost feel like Quentin was really bringing out his own thoughts and feelings about those horrific images that we saw and made them so realistic for his book. It's really quite harrowing to read the way he talks about bodies that have been misshapen and such by the crash, still strapped in to their seats and such. It's things like that. And actually the first reference to a death that he makes when getting to the crash site is a sheep that got hit while grazing heather by the plane, and what the sheep looks like. And he's like, and Bob's thinking, if that is what that sheep is like, what the hell am I going to see when I go over this hill? And then he goes over the hill and we get really some tough details come through. And I loved the fact that it was no holds barred. I think in situations like that, because this is so big in his career, and also to emphasize the scale of the situation, Quentin had to go into detail, and the way that he approaches it is brutal, but it's honest. But he knows that he doesn't have to do mass graphic. And what I mean by that is, for example, there is one person, a body that's in a strapped to a plane chair that he comes across. And I'm going to say a bit about it, but not too much. But he talks about how the man's legs are in inhuman positions, the way that they are bent and such, and that his face is basically gone. There's no face there. But then he goes, right, that's enough with that. Let's move on to someone else. Let's move on to he does enough to get the point across and go, this is the reality of the situation, and then he'll move on to something else or something else. So I appreciated that Quentin did that, because honesty is the best policy sometimes. It really is. And I think in these kind of situations of like plane crashes and such, you can leave it to the mind of the reader, but at the same time, you've got to be realistic to life. Like, it's not a case of that the chair would have landed absolutely sat upright position, there would be no damage to the person who was strapped into it, if you see what I mean. So A+ for the realism. I loved the tone of the book. It is very, as soon as it starts, it feels gritty, it feels uncomfortable. You're actually waking up in the middle of the night with the phone ringing is how the book begins. So it's like already, oh my God. So you already feel like tired, and it's dark. It's just, oh my God, I don't want to be dealing with this kind of situation. It felt rough. I felt like the cold, the wind, the gritty yet absolutely stunning architecture of Scotland. I felt I was there. So A+ for that. Where it falters for me is the characterization. Now, don't get me wrong, Bob Skinner, really interesting character to be our lead. All the other characters are very interesting as well, but the problem for me, especially because this is book 5 of a series, I felt like I should know things and I don't, and that made me ask questions. And I was just a bit like, I don't really like Bob. I don't, I mean, okay, yes, he cares about kids. Yes, he can be quite considerate, but at the same time, he's an absolute arsehole. he's a rather misogynistic and such. But every hero has faults at the same time, so it's human nature. In order to be liked, you also had to be hated for something. I mean, look at me. I mean, I actually had a message this morning on one of my videos saying basically that I ramble on, that I'm kind of like ridiculous. So that this was some, I can't remember the exact wording, but I'm just like, okay, that's whatever. I know that it's the way that I am. I can't help that. So yeah, I'm not gonna change myself because somebody left a comment or anything. But it just, for every person, there are good sides and there are bad sides, and he can be really an arsehole, can Bob. And it just made me, rather than respond, to approach him more and go, okay, I can see your faults, but I can deal with them. I just found myself just stepping back from him. And I felt awkward. Is that weird? At times I find him confusing, at times I find him intriguing, at times I like him, at times I hate him, and I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable with him. But it could well be because I'm starting at book 5. So I did a bit of research and I found that books 1 to 3 were considered, at least from fans based stuff, especially I was looking around Goodreads. Okay, so this isn't like, I'm not talking international critics or anything. Books 1 to 3 are considered pretty good. Book 4 was a real step up, and people are like, oh, okay. And then this book came out and they were like, oh, that was a bit of a letdown. So I don't know if it's just unfortunate that I've happened to go pick up book 5, that I got this book 5 in his advent calendar, and so I'm actually starting off on a bit of with his character on a bit of a dud story, but the online reviews kind of imply that's the case. So it didn't quite work for me. And then when you bring in the actual story with the bomb and everything, and who was killed and why that was happening, it just felt like a bit of a dud story overall. It wasn't that engaging, it wasn't that intriguing. And given that, especially that we had this child survivor as well, it just kind of felt like, I get why you did that, but at the same time it was just like, was it necessarily needed? I don't know. It just kind of felt like, by having that child survivor, that all the emphasis then was going to be on that child and what they saw, what they heard and such, and it kind of felt, it was too obvious. I felt like having a child survivor was a mistake as I was reading this book, which sounds horrible, I know, but I just felt like, well, it's obvious. There's some obvious things that this child could have seen or could have heard, or they don't reveal until, like, they randomly say something, or they randomly go, oh, that funny noise, or, something like that, which will then change everything. It was obvious something like that was going to happen, and I hate it when I have obvious things. I want to go into a book and have it be we're not going to be having like stereotype things. We are not going to be having obvious things, especially with crime. I just kind of feel like as soon as that boy was revealed, I went, oh, and that's disheartening. That's disheartening. And the investigation itself, okay, it is like realistic to life, but at the same time, it just felt clunky. I will give him props though, that we have multiple people who get involved with this. Obviously, some of them he has connections with from previous books that I don't know anything about. So I had to kind of figure out who the hell these people were. But I did like that we had multiple people involved. And then obviously when Skinner, as mentioned, that something happens to him and he has to step away for a while, it's over to them to then try and carry on and putting pieces together. Sorry, I need to cough. My throat's dry. I need a drink. So I do wonder, though, if the way he structured it with the various different people and such was simply because he knew he was going to have Bob take a step aside for a bit. I don't know if he does similar structuring in the rest of his books. But yeah, I just kind of felt awkward reading this. I have a problem, and it's a me thing. This is distinctly a me thing. I hate short chapters. I hate them. I'm like, chapter 1 is 1.5 pages. Chapter 2 is 1.5 pages. Chapter 3 is 3 pages. Then chapter 4 is 1 page and 1 sentence. Like, just please. I just implore, make a chapter a decent length. That's my thing. I do love long chapters as well. I adore long chapters. I think they're wonderful. But when I have chapters that are only like 1 or 2 pages long, that irks the hell out of me. If it's distinctly because you want it, because, like, say for this example, for the crash that happened, you're wanting to witness multiple people, multiple characters, and then at the end of the chapter, that's when the crash happens, and then it moves on to the next one. The end of that chapter is when the crash happens, moved on to the next person, end of that chapter where the crash happens. I totally get that, because you're saying these people are XYZ, they're doing XYZ, and then how that will bring in, and then have the chapters longer. Okay, get that, and then have your longer chapters from then on. But he doesn't really do that, and it just, like, oh, for the love of God, when it feels like I want a chapter to be that I can go, okay, so this is my environment. Okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read, and then I'm all good. But then if you're literally, like, right when I'm sitting in the comfort of going, okay, I know where I'm surrounded, and like, right, get up and move over there, that's just annoying. It's my irk, it's my thing. I know, but I had to say it. I cannot stand the length of the chapters of this book. It's just like, right, to degree, right, I will tell you, this is 439 pages and there are 94 chapters. It's 400 odd pages and 91 chapters. Come on. Oh my God, I just felt so, as I said, the story made me feel awkward and uncomfortable. The short chapters made me feel awkward and uncomfortable. Bob himself made me feel awkward and uncomfortable. Just generally, I just felt awkward and uncomfortable. And I can't help it. Even though he is an interesting guy, Bob, I mean, and there is a load of interesting backstory stuff that I learned in this book, which, as mentioned, because I didn't know anything about him, that was really interesting to learn about. And it's the ending kind of sets him on a mission going forward, which I gather is something that is looked at and referenced to in the rest of the books, I gather, without any knowledge of that being a true statement. Oh my God, he's a bit problematic for me. I mean, I totally love complex characters and see them having to fight through some stuff, but I just constantly felt I didn't want to go through that journey with Bob. I had to say it. I mean, Bob, yes, nice sort of guy, but then at the same time I'm like, you know, I'm not that fussed about going on the rest of this journey with you. So I'm not going to buy any more Bob Skinner related books. I just, no. So it was rough, it was awkward, it was kind of clunky, it just didn't work for me. So those are my thoughts on Skinner's Ordeal by Quintin Jardine. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think, definitely. But first I need to ask my questions. Would I read this again? No, I'm not that fussed about reading this book again at all. It just didn't work for me. Would I recommend this to anyone? I mean, if you wanted to read Scottish crime authors, then I don't have issue, because he did bring a lot, as I said, of authenticity. He brought a lot of atmosphere. I can't deny him that. So he's not a bad writer. This story didn't work. And yeah, I had problems in other areas as well. But I wouldn't say he's a bad writer. So if someone was wanting to read various Scottish crime authors, there are other ones I would list off first, but I would say, yeah, you might want to give it a go. I didn't get along with it, but see what you think. Would I read any more of Quintin's work? I'm really debating this one, because I always say that if this is a first read and I didn't get along with this book, I will always be open to read other books by that author, to give them another go, because it could just be that this was a one-off, you know, just happened to be a less popular book, and my research on like Goodreads and such implies that that is kind of the case. So I should read another book of Quintin's, but I think I'd have to do some research first, because as mentioned, this is his big book series, the Bob Skinner series, but I think he has some other book series as well. I think I'd like to read a standalone book of his, but I'd have to research to find out what that book is. So I would be open to it, but I'd have to do some research, and I think I'd like to have a bit of time away to kind of like wipe the memory of reading this book out of my head before I tried another one of his books. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Skinner's Ordeal by Quintin Jardine. Have you read his book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Thumbs up, thumbs down, tag to you later inside. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which I've filmed my next 5 reads video, and I'm very, very excited to show you what my next 5 reads will be. And I now know what I'll be taking with me to Manchester, and also what I'll be taking with me to Liverpool. So yay! Well, see what you think, and yeah, I'll be back with my thoughts on that one. And right, guys, bye.